What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Spring is in the air, the flowers are blooming, the trees are alive with the sound of music, and it's cherry blossom season. At least here in Vancouver, BC, it is cherry blossom season. Cherry blossom season has actually been underway for the last 2 or so weeks, I would say, but there's at least another 3 weeks left. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys all about the best practices, if you would, for shooting cherry blossom season. I'm going to be going over some general tips, from stylistic tips to just general advice. And then I'm also going to go over some Vancouver specific tips. I've got some great locations and also some good information about how to find locations where you can shoot cherry blossoms in their full magnificence. So first off, what is cherry blossom season? Well, cherry blossom season lasts from around March 10th-ish to the last week of April. Now, you're not gonna have the same trees blooming that entire time. Generally, each species or variety of tree will bloom for about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less. But the beauty of cherry blossom season is that, at least in Vancouver, there are hundreds of thousands of street trees, and they all bloom at different times. So, the beginning of cherry blossom season, you get these nice, really like puffy, white, cloudy cherry blossoms, and then you get like the middle kind of this color pink, or like the color of pink that I've got on my eyes is very delicate pastel pink. And then towards the end of the season, generally you will have more of a deep fuchsia blooming. So what you can get kind of depends on what part of the season and what part of the city you are shooting in. So once you've scouted your location, you've booked your model, or you're doing some street photography or whatever, you want to get there at the right time of day. Now, I highly recommend shooting at either sunset or sunrise, depending on which direction you're going to be shooting in. So I would prefer to have sunset coming through the trees, hitting the model, and then you can have a reflector or something to bounce that sunlight back into their face. Or you can have some kind of lighting setup if you like, but I really like the way that looks, like the sunset dappling through these like beautiful blossoms. I think it makes an amazing effect. You can also shoot midday if it's super sunny out, because you'll get this nice like dappled shadow effect on the model's face, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I have done a few shoots in the overcast weather because, I mean, if you live here in Vancouver like I do, you probably know that it hasn't been a particularly sunny March or a sunny April, so it's been a little bit difficult to get spots of sunny weather. I have been lucky there, but if you're not able to do that, there are really beautiful ways to shoot cherry blossoms in overcast weather as well. But you know what, for the sake of argument, let's pretend that we have the perfect setup, and I would say that that is at sunrise or sunset on a beautiful sunny day with tons of big voluminous clouds in the background. Those clouds are really going to create a parallel to the big clouds of flower that you find on the trees. So once you have all that set up, you're also gonna want to coordinate your model's outfit. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think that the color that goes best with pink is more pink. However, I've also seen some really interesting ones done where their model is wearing red, and that causes the model to really stand out among this like, you know, lighter fairy-ish pink and then this bold red. That's a pretty good look. But in general, you want to coordinate the outfit. If you are tired of that classic, you know, cherry blossom look, I would say avoid the long flowy dresses. You know, this kind of material where it's see-through and it's like really, you know, flowy and could be voluminous. I feel like there's a tendency to lean towards colors and fabrics and like fits that mimic the cherry blossoms rather than contrasting them. Personally, I think it'd be really sweet to do a shoot with somebody wearing like a full like Instagrammer outfit, but it's all pink. Something a little bit more modern that maybe balances that classic aesthetic that's already present in the cherry blossoms. I did recently get the chance to shoot this girl who was wearing like a pink powder pink wig and then like a bright pink latex two-piece. And damn, it was so cool, and it wasn't like a look that I'm accustomed to associating with cherry blossom season, which is why I was so excited about it after we took those photos. It really helps to look on websites like Pinterest to see what some of the common themes are and also which ones stand out among those common themes. So I actually have a Pinterest board that I made for this video and also for other cherry blossom shoots that I was doing, so I will link it down in the description. But I have tried to pin specifically cherry blossom photos that do something a little bit different. Subvert expectations. We associate cherry blossoms often with femininity and, in a way, heteronormativity. And so it can be really interesting to add in kind of a masculine element to that. You know, if you want to create something a little bit new, try to play around not just with your subject's outfit, what they're wearing, but with who you're photographing. We just need to be conscious of the cliches and then consciously wanting to subvert them. The next few are physical tips. So the first one is, if you can, bring somebody to help shake the branches. Now this is especially towards the end of the season when the petals are, fully starting to fall. If you have an assistant who is able to just shake it, shake the branch above your model's head and have the petals rain down like this beautiful snow, oh my god, that would be such a gorgeous look. Of course, you can put petals in Photoshop, but I feel like they're not gonna look as 100% as if you just do it in frame, in camera, in the moment. Plus, then your model's gonna be reacting to them a little bit and you can get some kind of dreamy, there's all kinds of stuff. Get someone to shake the branches. My next tip is shoot from a lower vantage point. So you have a street with cherry blossom trees up here, and then this is all just like cars and pedestrians. Well, you can get down low and have the model here. So models here, trees and stuff are like this, cars are like this. If you get down low, you've just got the model in the trees. So you could make it look like you are not even anywhere near a street and there's just these beautiful trees all around, and you could be shooting in the middle of a street in like downtown Vancouver. So I actually have a few photos that I've done in the middle of streets and then just completely like by my vantage point cropped out all of the cars. Another one is experiment with different perspectives. So along that same line, getting really low. One of my favorite photos that I found on Pinterest, on the Pinterest board, was this one. And I love it because it's such a unique perspective. And I couldn't find any other photos on the little Pinterest thing that I was scrolling through that had cherry blossoms and this same like perspective. So it's super unique, super iconic, and it just comes from experimenting with your perspective as a photographer. Like you're lying on the ground shooting up at the model. It's something that you're not going to see a lot of other people doing. So definitely experimenting with that kind of thing I think would really go a long way towards creating a super unique and interesting image. Also, getting creative using water and reflective surfaces. So if you are lucky enough to get a cherry blossom season beautiful sunset right after it's rained and there's puddles on the ground, oh my god, that would be my dream location, my dream setup. But that way you can get, the cherry blossom trees, and then the cherry blossom trees mirrored underneath the subject here. I see so many beautiful photos coming out of Japan because they have, obviously hundreds of thousands of cherry blossom trees. The sakura season there is huge, big tourist event. But also they've got these classic Japanese style gardens, which usually involve a lot of water and emphasis on water features, bridges, little waterfalls, ponds. And the cherry blossoms, the way that they reflect in those ponds, let me tell you, it's beautiful. The next set of tips involves getting creative physically with the camera, with the way that you're shooting. So first off, I would definitely recommend grabbing a sprig of blossoms and holding it in front of the camera. It creates like this kind of blurred out look, and if you've got like a nice enough sprig, you can use it to kind of frame the subject. This is also a good way to block out cars and pedestrians and other things that you don't want in the image. You can just block them out with the cherry blossom sprig in front of the lens. It works really well. The next one is to shoot through lower hanging branches, so you've got like elements of foreground and background. You really want layers. Like I would say layers is like the name of the game when it comes to cherry blossom season. So if you can get like a foreground layer, which is like beautiful blurred out flowers, and then a background layer, which is like these clouds of flowers in the distance, and then you've got like a mid-ground layer, which is like your model, and then maybe there's some like petals falling or something, that is iconic. Like that is perfect. And shooting through low-hanging branches is a really great way to get that foreground layer, that authentic foreground. And if you don't have any low-hanging branches, hold the sprig of cherry blossoms in front of the lens. Solved. My next tip is to be cognizant of shadows. So if you're shooting midday or even sunset and it's hitting the tree in a certain way, that'll cast really harsh shadows through the branches. And now that can kind of be a pain in the butt because if you've got like dappling all over the model's face, that can really obscure their features and make it difficult to photograph them. But if you've got like a big enough gap that you can really position the shadow over like one eye or something, then you've got a really interesting image. Another thing that I have experimented with extensively, as you guys know, are the Prism Lens Effects filters. The ones that I have found most effective for cherry blossom season are the kaleidoscope filter. If I zoom all the way in, really, really big bokeh, big aperture, and then I've got that kaleidoscope filter on there, generally you can't even really tell that it's doing the kaleidoscope thing with the model's face, but you can see that the cherry blossoms have just multiplied like tenfold all around them. And so you can like get it in a certain position where it's just the model's face like this, and then it's just like bouquet of cherry blossoms everywhere. It is so gorgeous. And honestly, once I get to shooting with that kaleidoscope filter and cherry blossoms, it's really hard for me to stop, and the model's just like, okay, we're done. I'm like, just a few more, please. The other one that I found really cool was the Dream Effects filter. And what is special about that one is that it gives like a really diffuse, dreamy blur. And generally that is a really nice complement to the diffuse dreaminess of cherry blossom season. So it creates like a vintage, blurry, you know, it's just beautiful. And it really complements the ethereal nature of the flowers. My last creative tip or piece of advice before I move on to my Vancouver specific portion of this video is to have some fun with motion. So if your subject is wearing like some kind of dress, have them move the dress around. If they've got their hair down, have them flip their hair a bunch. You know, I always do this timing thing where I'll be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, flip. 1, 2, 3, flip. Especially if they've got curly hair, this kind of cloud next to them that really like complements the cloud of the cherry blossoms behind them in a really beautiful way. It just adds an extra element of interest, so it's not just like a basic portrait, you know, there's some motion, there's some fluidity to it, and it also, yeah, parallels the motion and fluidity in the beautiful blossoms behind them. Alright, so that was all of my creative tips for shooting cherry blossom season. If you are not from Vancouver and not planning to travel to Vancouver anytime soon, then that's the end of the video for you, yay. But if you are from Vancouver, you're a Vancouver photographer or a Vancouver model, looking for some advice on how to shoot cherry blossom season, stay tuned because I've got some tips coming up for you. So my first tip, number one tip, was one that was actually given to me by a model. And it's the fact that Vancouver actually has a cherry blossom map. And so, you know, my dumbass was out driving around, just driving up and down side streets looking for cherry blossoms, and I found a bunch. And so I was like, hey, Main and 26th, there's cherry blossoms there, we gotta go. So while I was there, she's like, how did you find it? I was like, I was just driving by it. She's like, oh, you know there's a map? I'm like, what? So yeah, I'll link it down below in the video, but you can also find it just by Googling Vancouver cherry blossom map, and it has tagged on it every cherry blossom tree that is blooming at that moment. And you can see where there's like clusters of a bunch of them, and that's gonna be your hot spot. So my favorite one recently, I saw a bunch of them at Burrard Station, and so I went down to Burrard Station, and oh my god, Burrard Station is going off. One thing to consider about the cherry blossom map is that it doesn't actually work very well on mobile. So it'll work on mobile, but you actually can't see the app part, or the map part on mobile. So use it on your desktop, and there's actually like a physical like Google Maps thing with pins dropped into it. It'll say whether it's a favorite location or if it's just like a regular tree. But yeah, it's a really good resource if you're looking for locations to shoot. You know what else is a really good resource if you're looking for locations to shoot? Me, because I have explored, like I said, I've been driving up and down the city, and I've got a few favorite locations to share with you. So number one is the most photogenic street in all of Vancouver. And this was the same model who sent me a TikTok that said this is the most photogenic street, and she was like, we gotta shoot here. And so we did, and it was very much like, yeah, I don't know, I haven't been to every street in Vancouver, but I believe it, that this is the most beautiful one, for sure. Arbutus and 22nd is absolutely divine. It's got cherry blossoms on both sides that go all the way down this long hill, and then in the distance curve all the way back up. So it's just gorgeous. The issue is that everybody else seems to also know that it's the most beautiful street in Vancouver, and I mean, they're right. But there are, you know, probably 50 or 60 people shooting on that street, or at least, you know, when we were there were probably about 50 or 60 people all the way up and down the street. Granted, we were shooting right at sunset, so it was like prime time. But do keep that in mind, and we were shooting like a Thursday, like it wasn't like a weekend or anything. So do keep that in mind that you're gonna be kind of competing with others for real estate, but you know, everybody else is really respectful. It's also a great place to meet other photographers and models. I didn't do any networking when I was there, but I was really tempted. So yeah, definitely go check it out. 100% worth the transit out to Kits. The next spot is what I would call a hidden gem location. And the reason why I say that is because it's just like a side street, like Cambie and 19th. And holy crap, at sunset, it is incredible. I had to just stop and like stare at it, like, while the sun was going on. It's so gorgeous. So I'll post a picture and then some video that I took there, so you can kind of see what I mean. But it's just so gorgeous. The trees right now are going off. I was lucky enough to catch it when there's a biker going by, and it just looks incredible. So go check that place out. My next location is another, like, I would call it a hidden gem, and it's Main and 26th. So the reason why I like this location is because there's a church just down the block, so away from Main Street towards Fraser Street. There's a church with like some steps and a nice railing, and so you can get the model up on the steps and then you can shoot from the church door, and then the model is like right in front of this big beautiful cherry blossom tree. I think that's a pretty cool look. There's also a lot of like, you know, middle of the street shots that are possible to get, and it's generally like a low traffic area, so we shot in the middle of the road with not too much of a problem, and also not too many like spectators or pedestrians that we were walking into. And there's a tree there that is low enough that you can climb it. And so I did get some photos of my model in the tree. The cherry blossom map does say that you shouldn't climb the trees, so you know, don't climb the tree, but just saying that you could if you wanted to. I briefly mentioned Burrard Station, but let me tell you, Burrard Station is a great place to shoot right now. It's got this little like park area with a little fountain and like some kind of retro white railings and like some kind of retro greenish lamps, street lamps. And all of those elements together create a really, really beautiful look. It's just a really nice combo. There's also like kind of a vague retro futurist aesthetic in the station itself. This next location is really specific, and I'll tell you why I like it. So near the Federal store, which is a little cafe, amazing cafe, their cheesy biscuits are divine, but they are near Quebec and 10th, I guess, you know, right off Main and Broadway. There is a set of 3 cherry blossom trees there that are, you know, full bloom, the big, beautiful, puffy pink ones. And there's also a Service Canada building, and the Service Canada building has a reflective window on it. And that reflective window is kind of a sepia tone. And then there's also these sepia toned bricks. And so what you get is, oh, and there's a railing, and then there's like a concrete platform with some stairs. So, you know, already there's a whole bunch of different elements here to shoot with. There's the railing, you've got the classic photos of the model draped over the railing. There's the window, you've got the model kind of pressed up against the window, looking out at the blossoms. You've got photos with the blossoms in the foreground, and then the blossoms reflected off of the mirror in the background, and then the model here in the middle, and then the railing. It's just, there's a lot of cool elements to work with. The sunset hits it really nice. I just really like this location, and I've never really seen any other professional photographers there, so it's not like you have to compete for space. I know that, you know, at Burrard Station you probably do have to compete for space a bit, but I'm trying to pick a few here that you don't. So that one I would definitely say probably not. Oh, one more thing is that there's a church right behind it. So in some ways, like that you can take photos of the window, it'll be reflecting this church steeple. Super iconic, 10 out of 10. Another place that I've shot this year was Marina Square, which is right outside the entrance to Stanley Park. It's kind of like the last set of skyscrapers before you get into the park. What makes that place really cool is that there's a fountain, so it's got like this big kind of reflective pond, and you remember that I talked about reflective surfaces? And this big reflective pond, and these cherry blossoms are kind of like drooping over the pond, and so there's a way to capture it so that you've got the model up on the side of the pond here, and then the cherry blossoms drooping over. Really beautiful, 10 out of 10 would recommend. There's also a little park a little bit behind it with some more like magnolia blossoms if you want some like different kinds of flower, and also like a kind of a water feature and like some interesting like stepping stones that you can sit the model on. So there's a lot of options in that location. Yeah, definitely a great spot if you're looking for a variety of images. And my last place is David Lamb Park. Now this is kind of near Cambie Street Bridge, I believe. Is it Cambie? Might be Granville. I think it's between Cambie and Granville Street Bridges. During quarantine, I got some really cool photos there because there's nobody in the park, and there's just these big, beautiful buildings and these big blossoming cherry trees. But I think even, you know, post-quarantine, I mean, we're still during quarantine, but, you know, people aren't afraid to go to parks at this point. Knock on wood. So there's still people in the park, but I think it's still gonna be a great place to shoot because you do have these big iconic buildings. If you're shooting like an hour or two before sunset, the sun is gonna be peeling through those buildings and casting really interesting shadows on the ground. I think that's just gonna be a really cool element. I love, yeah, working with shadows and light, and then having that element of the cherry blossoms in there. It's just, it's the making of a really interesting photo. So I haven't brought a model there, but I would like to, and I would definitely recommend that you do. Alright, well that is all of my tips, all of my Vancouver locations. Now that I've talked your ear off about this season, I hope you are very ready to go out and get all the pictures that your little heart desires. I know that I am just itching to go out for my second round of cherry blossom shoots this week. I'm very excited for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful. If there's any tips or, you know, advice or locations that I missed, please like give me a comment down in the comment box. I'd really like to hear, especially locations in Vancouver that I missed, because, you know, I'm gonna shoot there if you recommend it to me and there's still blossoms there when I go. And yeah, any like creative advice or anything, just yeah, let me know down in the comment section. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, you can subscribe to my channel. If you don't want to see more like it, but you still liked it, you can just smash that like button. My dad's always telling me that I gotta say smash that like button more, so smash that like button. And, you know, in the meantime, you can stay sharp, and don't forget to keep shooting. Do you guys like my dreamy powder pink makeup look that I did for this video? I know that I just did a pink look for like 2 videos ago or something, but I mean, what am I gonna do? Not do a pink makeup look for cherry blossom season? No, I'm gonna do a pink makeup look, so that's what you got.